Hello and welcome to another Eternal Bookstore Book Nook customization video. In today's video, we're going to build wall I, and I am already thinking about making this book nook into a room box, which I'm going to do in the next video because there's just too much. If you've been following along with my series of Eternal Bookstore Book Nook customization videos, then you already pretty much understand how to assemble these parts and pieces. So I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on the actual building of the kit as per the instructions. So just like in all the other videos, I'm going to be sure to sand off all the little tab things that hold these small books into place with my emery board, and then I'm going to glue it to this backer with the super glue. Anytime an edge is going to be visible, I am going to color it in with my Rust-Oleum stain markers that I got at Walmart. If you plan on having this book nook be just a book nook, then this may not be necessary. But because I eventually convert my book nook into a room box that can go back and forth between the two formats, the edges may be visible in the room box format. So I want to make sure that they don't look junky. Anytime you're making shelves and you're putting something on the shelves, it's always a good idea to do all the horizontal ones first, making sure that they're level and that there's enough space between the shelves to fit whatever is going to go on there. And then after it's completely dry, go ahead and glue in your little items. I got these really convenient small wood clamps at Harbor Freight Tools. If you don't live near Harbor Freight Tools, they do have a website, or I'm sure you can find small clips like this on Amazon. I will try to link everything that I use in this video on my Pinterest board, Arts and Crafts Supplies that I recommend. I didn't like the way these sides looked on this cabinet that is going to be on the upper part of wall I, and so I decided to use some skinny sticks that I colored again with the Rust-Oleum stain markers to just face the side of that cabinet so that the ends of those boards and the seams in between them wouldn't be visible. A regular cabinet would never be built with seams like this, and so putting a little facing board on there can really dress it up and make it look cool. Remember, I get these skinny sticks at Walmart, but you could probably use coffee stirrers as well if you have access to them. I haven't glued down the doors yet, and these edge facings are going to cover up part of the door, but because this door is not going to ever open, it doesn't really matter. I know I've said this 100 times, and I apologize if I keep repeating myself, but if you plan on converting your book nook into a room box, you may want to wait to build these furniture items until you've done that work. Once the doors are glued down, I'll weight them down with my 1-2-3 blocks so that they will stick well to the bottom, and then I will glue on my skinny sticks. These 1-2-3 blocks, or maybe they're called 3-2-1 blocks, I can't remember, are really useful for miniature making. So if you plan on making more miniatures, it's something I recommend. And again, I have those linked on my Pinterest board, which is in the description below this video. One of the problems I ran into later on in the building of this particular wall was the cabinets and bookcases were coming unglued. The super glue is really not conducive to a build that's going to be messed around with a whole bunch. So if you plan on converting yours into a room box, then you might want to use tacky glue, which has a little bit more flexibility. In retrospect, I wish I had waited to assemble this cabinet until I decided to do the room box. I would have tried to make this cabinet have hinges and allow the doors to open and close, but hindsight is 2020. that's drying, I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen if I cut off this walkway, because I realized that if I open this up into a room box, I don't want this weird walkway just hovering in outer space. And ultimately, I decide that I am going to remove this walkway. So I'm just going to cut it off with my Dremel cutoff wheel. Again, it would have been better if I had done this prior to building this whole entire thing, but this is the way I work. I'm experimenting and figuring things out as I go. I needed to figure out what the wall I would do against the other pieces that are there to see where I might want to put some more wallpaper. I didn't have the same wallpaper as I used in the little office, so I picked a wallpaper that was of a similar color. And because I didn't have enough of it to wallpaper the entire wall, I just wallpapered the upper part on either side of the bookcase. And you can see here I'm just placing that down and checking it all out before I glue it into place. I need to temporarily tack down this wallpaper and that second floor bookshelf before I commit to gluing it in, because I need to make sure that when this book nook closes, that bookshelf will just barely go over the stuff that is on the other part of the book nook. You'll see what I mean here when I fold it closed. If you're not making a room box, this is going to be vital for you. If you are making a room box, it's still going to matter because there's still a little piece of this that will potentially get in the way when you close up your room box into the book nook, even though we're removing part of that walkway. So that fits together and we can see what it looks like as the book nook. We can see that that's all kind of one little loft area there, and it just does look very nice, but this is when I'm like, I think I want to make this even more special. So I'll permanently glue these in now with some tacky glue and get on with the bottom part of the wall. I'm always looking ahead in my manual to see what is coming up so that I can predict what I might want to customize. So I think I'm going to customize these two decorative upright pieces with a little bit of gold paper so that when you look through those little holes, you'll see the decorative gold paper. I would say I struggled the most with this next part, building these sort of free-floating shelves that just attach to the side of the wall with no real structure. I tried using these Legos in different configurations to sort of help me square up the corners and get everything level. You'll have to figure out what works well for you. The lines are printed on there, and they're just, if your board isn't completely flat, you may have to weight it down because they're hard to glue there, especially if your little parts, your little shelving parts aren't completely straight as well. If you punch out all the pieces early on and you live in a very humid place, your pieces may end up warping. And this is why I recommend not punching out the pieces until you're ready to actually use them. I personally have not mastered the art of using these Legos in my miniature making. I usually end up accidentally gluing the Legos to the piece or whatever, but I find that they can be useful in giving yourself a nice right angle, especially if one of the pieces, like the upper shelf there, is already glued down and completely dry, because you don't want to accidentally push it off while you're trying to get your Lego straight. Unfortunately, I lost the footage of myself assembling these side uprights in the base cabinet, but what I did was I assembled the side uprights and then I found this Christmas card envelope that I had gotten that had some nice sort of muted gold paper in it. And I slid it inside of those uprights so that when you look through the decorative carving, you can see the gold. The uprights on the side there, the little stepped thing that you see on the top right here, it should go at the bottom. I have them upside down, and I figured that out in a minute. And the other thing that I did wrong is on the one that I'm currently putting the paper in off to the side there, I had glued the stepped base to the top rather than the bottom. And I figured this out later and rectify that. You can tell what needs to go at the top because there's a notch in the back there, and there's more space between the uppermost little rosette there and the actual top. So here you can see that I've fixed the positioning of those uprights, and now I'm starting to put in the books. This shelf is a great place for some of the plants that I taught you how to make in that previous tutorial. I'll link that video below so you can find it. And under my playlist miniature tutorials, I end up making a nice trailing ivy or pothos plant in a gold bead that is similarly muted like the paper inside of those uprights, and I trail that down across the books. I also make a crystal decanter and some other miniatures using some beads, and I'm going to post a separate tutorial on how to do that. I wanted a way to tie the upper cabinet and the lower base cabinet together, and so I decided to use these little jewelry making drops to make them look like handles. There wasn't a good way for me to glue two handles on the top, otherwise I would have, and I end up gluing two more on the bottom base cabinet, which you can't see in this shot. I'll show you that in a minute. I decided to color the drops gold so that they would pick up the color of the gold in those uprights. Here's that crystal decanter I was talking about earlier, and I think those beads are still available at Michael's. And again, I will try to link the exact beads that I used in my Pinterest board, which is linked at the bottom of the video. Here are some of the things that I'm thinking about putting on this shelf. There's that plant I made. You see my butterfly journal there, but that ends up going up on the desk in the loft. So I'm just sort of trying to figure out what I want to go where before I glue all these items into place. I decided to use my glue gun to glue these books into place because the back of the books sometimes had paper sticking out and weren't completely level, and so it was a little bit harder for the super glue to catch hold of anything. The problem I ran into is that my hot glue dried before I could get the books completely secured in there. So if you know how you want the books configured, you may want to take each section of books out and glue those together separately prior to gluing the entire block into the shelving area. And so I am going to upload this video, and then I'm going to upload the tutorial on the crystal decanter. And then the next thing will be converting it to a room box. And once that is done, that's when I'll upload the tutorial on the sliding library ladder, which will help to tie the bottom part of this wall in with the top part. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.